Will you drink to the earth and to the days which have passed upon it? Will you drink to the fullness which was and to friends who have passed on? Will you drink to good company well met?
What do you think about white men?
I think it's just the term white man, just immediate turn off.
What do you think of black men?
Love.
Do you think it's racist to, by default, not like white men?
I mean, I don't think so, because I think there's a difference between like racism and that's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question.
Yeah, because like, I mean, I don't dislike, but there is like nervous feeling. I don't know.
So if you met someone who said that they get nervous around black men and that they've had bad experiences with black men, would you still consider that racist?
Ooh, yeah, I see your point.
The FBI reportedly groomed a 16-year-old with brain development issues to become a terrorist, according to New Intercept reporting. The Department of Justice arrested now 18-year-old Mateo Ventura in Massachusetts last week on, quote, allegations of providing financial support to the Islamic State group, The Intercept reports. According to The Intercept, however, the only terrorist he's accused of being in contact with was an undercover FBI agent who befriended him online when he was just 16 years old. He solicited cash donations via gift cards and directed him not to tell anyone about their online relationship.
Ventura's family has reportedly denied allegations that their son was a terrorist and said he was manipulated by the FBI. Mateo's father, Paul Ventura, who is on the left of Mateo in this cell phone photo, told The Intercept, quote, he was born prematurely, he had brain development issues, I had the school do a neurosurgery evaluation on him and they said his brain was underdeveloped. He was suffering endless bullying at school with other kids taking food off his plate, tripping him in the hallway, humiliating him, laughing at him. Intercept reporter Murtaza Hussain joins us now to discuss this story. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So this is not the first time this has happened by a long stretch. The FBI has a well-documented history by you and other reporters of engaging in what some have described as a kind of entrapment, connecting with lonely people on social media and inducing them to commit to crimes that they were utterly unlikely or incapable of doing on their own. What is the state of this case right now? He's been arrested. Is the FBI putting up the mission accomplished banner that we've caught a dangerous terrorist, et cetera?
Well, yeah, they actually did put up the mission accomplished banner in the form of a press release immediately after the arrest, which really highlighted the case as a seeming victory against terrorist financing or uncovering of a dangerous possible ISIS fighter or other type of terrorist in the United States. And that initially was also the narrative that a lot of local and regional news outlets which covered the case did, which is quite typical. The FBI press release or DOJ press release following these arrests often drives most of the news coverage thereafter. But I find covering these issues for about a decade now, there's very, very often more to the story than initially being proclaimed in these sort of official communications. And this case, I think, of all the cases I've covered over the years, stands out for being particularly egregious for a number of reasons. Rob, you mentioned that, and Bree mentioned that this young man was very young. He was 16 years old when it started. He had a history of developmental deficiencies that sort of would make it harder for him to do something like what he's being accused of. But also, very, very interestingly and importantly, in the course of this investigation, which went for 2 years, Mateo Ventura actually, towards the end, tried reporting the FBI's own informant to the FBI. He tried calling it several times to say, hey, I have information about terrorist recruitment. I'd like to give this information to you in exchange for some sort of reciprocal agreement. And that's actually how the investigation almost came to an end. Not long after, maybe about a month after he started calling the FBI and trying to report this informant who was their own employee, FBI undercover employee, he was arrested by the FBI. So there are a lot of very, very troubling aspects of this case. And I'll add that also this is the government's own narrative. This is not even the defense narrative, which will probably raise other extenuating factors. The government's own narrative is that this was what they're doing for them for 2 years, and he even tried reporting themselves to the FBI.
It's all about mask compliance. That's going to be absolutely critical, because if you don't have masks, remember, this virus aerosolizes, so even 6 feet is not enough. It can go 17, 18 feet, several meters. What we really have to do is have vaccine mandates in the schools. We should have a rule that anyone who walks into a school over the age of 12 has to be vaccinated. This is the nature of the anti-vaccine movement in this country. It's somehow married now to far right-wing extremism and white nationalist group. Anyone who's unvaccinated and has been lucky enough to escape COVID, your luck is about to run out. And I call it anti-science aggression coming from Senator Rand Paul, Senator Johnson, members of the House of Representatives, in addition to those two senators, are killers. We're starting to see now those same anti-vaccine messages that's coming out of the U.S. And now we're finding it in Africa and Latin America. And remember, what the other reason we're seeing this is the Putin government has, this has been reported by U.S. and British intelligence, has been piling on with this whole systematic program of what's being called weaponized health communications, trying to destabilize democracies with anti-vaccine, anti-science messages and targeting. The Biden administration has to realize that anti-science is a killer. Disinformation. It's not even just disinformation. This is an anti-science empire right now, and we need Homeland Security. We need the Justice Department. We've really got to figure this out, and Health and Human Services will not be able to figure this out on their own.
I've always thought that in the case of conspiracy peddlers, it's not necessarily a super profitable enterprise to ask whether they really believe it or not, because I don't know what's in their hearts. I don't know what's in their minds. All I know is what they spend their time doing, which is promoting conspiracy theories. In the case of ordinary people, conspiracy consumers, and most Americans are, to some degree, consumers of conspiracy theories. All the studies that we have show that like 1 in 3 Americans believe in some conspiracy theory to some extent. For the people in the very sort of deep end of the conspiracy pool, people who are consuming a lot of conspiracy content, I think it's really important to look at the way it helps them make sense of the world and make sense of our political moment and make sense of a lot of times like what's happening in their own lives.
All the studies that we have show that like 1 in 3 Americans believe in some conspiracy theory. Huh? You'll notice the upspeak, the rising inflection at the end of the sentence. That's a familiar tick in Brooklyn. It's designed to turn a declarative sentence into a question and thereby belittle the listener. Do you follow me? Is this too complicated for you? So the lady in the nose ring wants you to know she's smart, but she's not. When Merlin recorded that interview, Vice, where she now works, was valued at more than $5 billion. Genius investors like James Murdoch were showering the company with money. Everyone wanted in on the future of media, which was uptalkers like Anna Merlin lecturing you about racism and misinformation. But that has changed. Last month, Vice filed for bankruptcy. Anna Merlin is still on Twitter screeching about how her critics are transphobic, but nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear from Anna Merlin anymore. The gatekeepers are transparently ridiculous. Everyone can see that. People have started to notice.